In this video, some warnings to Cardano investors and users. As we're seeing, the Cardano ecosystem is growing right now, so there are more applications and side chains and other networks that are linking to Cardano, all telling us that this is the place that we should put our ADA for various reasons, mainly because they want our liquidity and they want to obviously earn trading fees. So I want to go over some of the implications of this in this video. Should we put our ADA on these chains, on these applications, or is it a bad idea and basically this is a way for us to lose money overall? So I want to talk about some of those thoughts and if we should do it or not in this video. Timestamps are in the description as usual. So firstly, I want to come onto Milkomeda, which you may have heard of, and they came out, a couple of weeks ago saying, we are bringing Ethereum applications to Cardano. And I want to talk about that statement initially, and also some of the ways that you can use Milkomeda and if you should use Milkomeda. Now, Milkomeda came out and, they basically said that they were bringing Ethereum to the Cardano ecosystem. They were bringing Ethereum applications and something called EVM, which is Ethereum Virtual Machine, to Cardano. So I think they somewhat purposely kind of not misled, but they definitely made it seem like they were bringing EVM to the Cardano blockchain. And that's not actually what it is at the moment. You can see it's a layer 2 protocol rollups delivering EVM capabilities to non-EVM blockchains. I think they've changed this tagline recently. So just to explain very quickly what this is, because you need to understand this before moving your coins off of the ADA blockchain, right? Because there are different kind of security mechanisms in place. Nothing's good or bad, it just is what it is. And if you know, then you can make a decision whether you want to use it or not. So Milkomeda kind of marketed themselves as on Cardano, and that is absolutely not true. So Cardano is a blockchain right here, as you can see, and Milkomeda is, for the time being anyway, basically a side chain. This means that if you have ADA tokens right here on the blockchain, what you have to do is basically bridge them over, as you can see here, to Milkomeda. What happens behind the scenes, I think, is essentially you have ADA and you send it to a multi-sig wallet. So let's say you have $1,000 worth of ADA, you send that to a multi-sig, and that gets locked in that wallet. They then give you on this Milkomeda chain something called Milkomeda on a one-for-one basis. That's fine, and it's something that happens all across the industry. Polygon does it for Ethereum, right? They are a side chain, and so you can bridge assets from Ethereum over to Polygon. It's very usual. The thing is, obviously, is that Polygon is a side chain and it's centralized, and so it has different security. Milkomeda is exactly the same. It's a side chain of ADA, and so it has different security. What you essentially get on Milkomeda is a wrapped version of ADA on a one-for-one basis. This is absolutely fine, but just be sure that when you're bridging your ADA over to Milkomeda, you're bridging it to a completely different chain. It's an EVM spin-off and it has different security, right? It's much more centralized and it's not Cardano. It is not Cardano, the blockchain. So that's really important to know. So to say that, Milkomeda is on Cardano is just not true right now. I've heard that they actually have plans to potentially put Milkomeda in a roll-up on top of Cardano. I'm not sure if you can put an EVM roll-up on top of UTXO, but maybe it's possible. If they move to a roll-up on top of Cardano, like right here, and they actually become a layer 2, then they could call themselves a layer 2 and definitely have the same security, share the security from ADA. But for right now, they're a side chain. So that's not good or bad, it just is what it is. It has different implications. So you can see MilkySwap, which is like the first app on Milkomeda. If you go to Connect Wallet, it only has support for MetaMask. MetaMask is obviously an EVM wallet. So what you have to do is bridge your ADA over to that. So this is an EVM, kind of Uniswap curve, copy paste of the smart contracts, nothing wrong with that. So what you can see right here is farm over here. You do have some assets that you can put into liquidity pools. On the right-hand side, you can see amazing annualized returns, right? Now, the problem is that what you've got here is essentially two risk assets. You have the Milky tokens, which is not Milk-ADA, it's something different. And then you have wrapped ADA, which is obviously one-for-one with ADA. These are two risk assets. And so even though it says on the right-hand side that you have a very high annualized yield, please understand that these tokens are two risk assets, and they're very, very risky, because providing liquidity of two risk assets like this can give you something called impermanent loss. And when you have two risk assets, the risk of impermanent loss is much, much higher. So this APR, okay, is going to be given to you, but what will be taken away is the movement of the price in these two tokens. So even though this annualized APR, you can see at 200%, I will guarantee you that the impermanent loss will be very large on these tokens as well. And what you can see is that all of these tokens are basically having one risk token in there. Now, there's calculations you can make whether or not you think that the APR is actually still quite high in comparison to what would be known as impermanent loss. I can't go over that in this video. I've got other videos on that, including in the crypto course. I'll link it in the description. But it's very important to understand that this is not the total return that you're getting. There will be some loss here from impermanent loss. Now, what you can do is, if you just type in USD, stablecoin pairs do not suffer from impermanent loss because a stablecoin is 1 and 1, and so there's no price movement of those, and so there's no impermanent loss. There's actually some pretty good APRs right here that you might want to use, right? So you have CE, that's the seller bridge. So that's obviously the thing that Milkomeda themselves are using to bridge tokens, I think, from ETH and other EVM chains. So basically you bridge, USDT and whatever from ETH. It then goes through to seller bridge. That seller bridge goes over to Milkomeda. So yeah, pretty complex, but essentially a 22% annualized yield for a stablecoin pair is actually very good. It's very good yield. And so that is something that you might want to use. Now, like I said, firstly, the TVL here is $5 million. So that's really very low in terms of liquidity. But obviously there are different security implications for using, a different chain other than ADA, because this is not on ADA right now. So these are just things that you need to be aware of before kind of moving a lot of tokens to other chains, right? Bridges can sometimes have security issues. Liquidity may be an issue on a new chain. And also impermanent loss can happen with some of these non-stablecoin pairs. So just be aware of that. But there are opportunities as well. As you can see right here, 20% yield on a stablecoin pair for right here is actually pretty good. Now you get paid rewards in Milky tokens, which obviously these can fluctuate wildly in price as well. So if you are getting rewards in these Milky tokens, you may want to be selling out pretty quick to kind of lock in the yield. Otherwise, if you keep them for a long time, potentially these are going to go down in value as well, as they just basically spit out more and more incentives in these Milky tokens. So yeah, all things to be really aware of as new networks and new applications are trying to incentivize your use on these platforms. I actually have 2 videos about impermanent loss in the crypto course. You really need to understand what impermanent loss is, because if you put liquidity into a pool and then the impermanent loss is big, basically you're just stuck then, and you kind of can't take your coins out because you're just going to make concrete a really big loss. And then what happens in liquidity pools sometimes is that the rewards go down as well. So then you've got a huge impermanent loss and also lowering rewards, and it just kind of takes your tokens away from you. So important to know. I have 2 in the course right here, or you can look up videos on impermanent loss as well. But yeah, really important. Something else that cropped up this week was the amount of Plutus scripts running on Cardano. Plutus are the smart contracts, so the more the better. That means the ecosystem is growing, and you can see obviously something happened towards the end of March where Plutus scripts kind of almost doubled, right? So things are coming online, and apps are coming online. I would say, wait for the June event. That is the HFC event, and there's a hard fork coming with, a lot of upgrades that are going to allow for, more complex applications to run. So it looks like the blockchain is kind of getting ready for that right now, testing things out, putting more scripts on. ADA has 2 ways of kind of transacting, right? One is through Plutus scripts and smart contracts. So that's really important. And obviously with that is data, right? So you need like data throughput for smart contracts. But there's also something else called Hydra, right? Which is basically like the Lightning Network on Bitcoin. So that's when you take your ADA coins, right? And what you do is you put them up into a multi-sig wallet. And so you have 2 people here that basically have ADA, and they can spend ADA between each other an endless amount of times. Let's say they both put in $100, right? And the Hydra head can basically spend those coins back and forth throughout the whole time that the multi-sig wallet is open. And then whatever the balance is at the end, when you both decide that transaction is done, that goes back to the blockchain. and then your balances basically go back into your, you know, your base layer wallets, right? And that the reason why that's important is because essentially in a Hydra head, it's not smart contracts, right? It's not scaling smart contracts. It's just scaling transactions. That's really important for certain applications, right? For example, gaming, where you need basically unlimited free transactions. So that could, why that's important is because this could attract certain developers to make certain applications. Certain applications draw in users, and that benefits ADA holders. So this is why the tech is important. What other chains are doing right now is basically creating a completely new separate centralized blockchain and saying, hey, transactions are cheap, but that's not scaling. And I think that the way that Cardano are doing it, at least, is having technology here that can potentially attract some developers to make applications and therefore increase the value of ADA over time. So over the long term, it's a great solution. It happens on Bitcoin as well, known as the Lightning Network. I think it's basically the same technology, but Cardano are doing a lot to scale smart contracts as well, and that will be coming in June. Also really awesome is that April 5th, Snoop Dogg is actually going to be having a call with Charles Hoskinson. So Claymates, which are an NFT set on Cardano, are basically teaming up with Snoop Dogg to make some characters, I guess. This is really awesome. It's going to bring Cardano and, you know, CNFTs more into kind of mainstream consciousness, which is really great. And it just shows that, you know, Cardano is growing. Obviously, there's many things going on, but Cardano is part of the mix anyway. More users, more wallets, more people using the chain eventually leads to, you know, more solid use case for Cardano itself and the ADA tokens, which is what investors want. Anyway, that's it for this video. I'm James, Money ZG. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.